Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm bringing you another reading experiment, and in today's video I'm going to be reading books that you loved that you thought that I would hate. I went over on my community tab here on YouTube and asked you guys to submit books that you loved that you thought that I would hate, and in today's video I'm going to be reading 3 of those books and seeing just how I feel about them. Will I end up in hate territory, or will I give you a little plot twist and end up loving them? Stay tuned to find out. I've done a video similar to this in the past, but this time I asked specifically for books that you guys loved. Last time I was just specifically looking for books that you thought I would hate. And the reason I'm doing this video and the reason that I'm tackling this experiment is because I always wonder, for those of you who watch my videos consistently and actually tune in, if you're able to like fully pick up on my reading taste, pick up on the things that I love, pick up on the things that I hate. And I feel like in today's video I'm putting some of you to the test. I know it seems odd to be reading these books that I could potentially end up hating, but hear me out. I'll try my best to DNF the books if I ever feel any kind of aggravation toward the book that I'm reading. I'll DNF the book, I won't chuck the book across the room and scream explicits. I promise. This is my pledge to you. I picked out 3 books from that post, and the first book that I will be reading for this video is, I haven't decided yet, I'm gonna decide right now. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This rec comes from, actually, would it be called a rec? Is it an anti-recommendation? Much to think about. Dax from Katie says, I honestly think you'll hate it because of the way it's written. It's more of a confusing read, which is the reason I love it so much. Interesting. I'm intrigued, Kate. Will I be confused? Will I like the confusion? I don't know. It does have a very interesting premise, though. It takes place at a masquerade ball where the character Evelyn Hardcastle will die, and she will die every day over and over again until Aiden Bishop can identify the murderer and stop them. Like, that premise, ooh, it got me. Signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. I love me a murder mystery moment, and I will gladly take on whatever this book has to offer. I'm going in open-minded, and we'll see how I end up feeling about it. With that being said, let's get started. Time for reading. I finished. Oh, I damaged it a little bit. Oh, the boo-boo. Ew, that was very cringe. I'm sorry that you had to witness that. Anyway, I finished the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I learned that in the UK, it's just the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but in bringing it over to the US, they clashed over the title and added the little half in there. I have this theory that they did that because of Evelyn Hugo. Not 100% sure on that, but something tells me that they were like, the titles are too similar. So they threw in a half in there, fix the problem. They're so different now. I am so in between on this book because on one hand, it was like a masterpiece to me. I lived, laughed, loved it. But on the other hand, I'm like, eh. It's one of those situations where I can't tell if like the negatives outweigh the positives or if the positives outweigh the negatives. There were a lot of things that didn't work for me with this book. One in particular was just how much it dragged. It hits the spot where things are just dragging on and on and on. And a part of me wanted to hit fast forward. If I was listening to this on audiobook, I probably would have bumped up the speed to 3 times speed. Vroom vroom, let's go get yeetin'. But the problem with that is that I don't know that I would have fully comprehended this book had I listened to it on such a fast speed, because of the fact that like this book is already really confusing as it is and like hard to follow at times. That bumping up the speed probably would have made it much worse, and it's already really hard to follow. So there was a certain point in this book for me where things started to take off. The beginning slow motion was this opportunity to create these stairs that led you to a slide where you would slide into all the goodness that the book had to offer. The mystery element and all that comes along with Aiden's character, which I don't know if it's a spoiler to say what goes on with Aiden's character. I'm not gonna say it because I feel like it's kind of a treat. It's a little bit of a treat with the book if you don't know going in. Actually, now that I'm reading the full description on the back of the book, it does say the spoilery bit that I was about to say. I'm still not gonna say it. There's something that happens to Aiden every day that is just one of my favorite parts of the book. The mystery element hooked me even though I'm not a big brain detective kind of guy. In fact, I'd consider myself the opposite. I'm a gullible little brain guy that can be led astray easily, but I still love a whodunit mystery, and the way that we get to see the different characters involved in this sort of murder mystery situation and all these people that could potentially be the murderers, that aspect of it was just so cool and so fun. There is just a lot of confusing elements that kind of come into play with this one, and it is at times hard to follow. I think that it doesn't help that we have such a big cast because there are so many people that we are following, and I will say a big bummer for me is that I never really felt super connected to any of the characters, which can often be a struggle bus for me because if I am not invested in the characters, it can sometimes just be hard to read, or I can sometimes just kind of check out. But I also understand that there are books out there that exist that are plot driven, and this one definitely fell in that category for me. Some people might not agree with that. Some people might have connected to the characters. I personally did not, but that's okay. We all can have differing opinions, right? right. Looking back on it, I wish I would have taken like extensive notes as I read it. Like I wish I would have pretended like I was in a very important class in school and I needed to jot down every little detail. There were times when I had to like take a step back and decompress and process and just like let everything sink in, because you're kind of being thrown a lot of information. There was just a lot to it that made me want to take a break, check out, and chill. But at the same time, like there is a part of me that feels like this book, I don't know if masterpiece is the right word, but like it was a fantastic book, and like taking my own thoughts and my own complaints and critiques out of it, like it's a great book, and I do see why people love it. I didn't hate it per se. Thank you. I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't like love it either. Had I been more big-brained and less confused more of the time reading it, then I think I would have enjoyed it so much more. I could just tell while reading it the work that the author had put into it. Like it's this very tight puzzle. You have to keep all the pieces together. If one piece is missing, the story goes tumbling into nothingness. Concept-wise, it nailed it. It came in swinging and hit that home run. I am leaning on like a 3.5 4-star rating. I think I'm gonna go for the 4-star rating because that feels right. Even though I have all these critiques, I still look at this book with a lot of appreciation and respect. I do get why it was recommended as a book that I might hate. Because of the elements that I mentioned, there were so many other positives that kind of overshadowed my negative thoughts surrounding this book. So it's a win, baby. The next recommendation comes from J. Joe Reads, and that book is Hide by Kiersten White. They said, Hide by Kiersten White. It was an easy read, but the romance kind of happened out of nowhere, and something major happens that is later explained that happened for essentially no reason. Enjoy. Honestly, oh, this is upside down. Honestly, the reason that I chose this one is because I have a bit of a history with Kiersten White. I have read a lot of her books. Some of them I have straight up hated, and then I loved the And I Darken trilogy, like that trilogy. Fantastic, loved it, but I haven't really read much from her since that trilogy. So part of me was just intrigued to pick up another book by Kiersten White. This is following a bunch of characters as they play this game, this big challenge in this abandoned amusement park, and the winner gets a big sum of money. So everybody wants to win. Everybody is doing what they can to reach the finish line. I love books that kind of have that sort of challenge element in them, or some kind of game that the characters are playing. We'll see where I land with this book. With that being said, it's time for reading. That is very close to my face. Hello. Let's scoot you back a little bit. I feel like this shirt makes me look like I am working at a carnival. Step right up, step right up. Funnel cake, get your funnel cake. Okay guys, listen. Are you listening? I was fully set up to hate this book, like every little bit of it, and yet I am not leaving said book a hater. Now, I'm not gonna call myself a lover either. I am not in my lover era. Did I have a good time though? Understatement of the year. It was a full-on good time, chaos and all. It is technically a horror novel. The vibes are definitely on the gritty side of things. Eerie. Again, it wasn't a perfect book. Entertainment-wise, I really enjoyed myself. We get a bunch of different perspectives throughout this story. In the game, there are, how many competitors are there? There's like 14 competitors. We don't necessarily like hone in on every competitor, but we definitely see a lot of perspectives. And I would say that this is kind of where the book didn't work for me necessarily. It was nice seeing different angles of the story unfold, and I think it worked out well for the plot itself. But character-wise, it really came in and kind of like stabbed the development. Because we get so many perspectives and because it's a rather short book, like it's under 300 pages, we just don't have time to really like hone in on each of them and their backstories. But I just felt like Kiersten White was doing the most to make her characters feel unlikable and to make them feel like offensive almost sometimes. And it was like, okay girl, we get it. And then for the most part, it felt like we were just getting this kind of surface level approach with all of the characters, mostly because of the fact that we are moving throughout several POVs. The plot itself was fantastic for the most part. It was fun. I loved the atmosphere. Like, I'm all about the abandoned amusement park. Maybe that's why I wore this shirt, because it's kind of giving amusement park worker vibes. More carnival vibes though, I would say. And the fact that we were playing like hide and seek in this big abandoned amusement park, that was really fun. To me, this had a very Hunger Games feeling to it, and I loved that aspect. Obviously, that comparison is always going to come through when there's some kind of like competition situation within kind of a confined space. But it did have that quality, and I feel like if you read this book, you will know what I'm talking about. I would give this book a solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. I get why this book was recommended to me as a book that I might hate, because specifically they mentioned the romance. But again, I think because we jump around so much throughout this book and we're not like necessarily focused in. I mean, there are like technically, there are kind of main characters, aren't there? Like Mac. But anyway, it wasn't like a huge deal breaker for me, and I was able to kind of like overlook it a bit. The next book recommendation comes from Jay, and the book that they recommended is The Memory Police. Despite this being a book that they think I might hate, I've had this book on my TBR for quite some time now, and I've been really wanting to get around to it, and I just kind of took this as an opportunity to pick up this book and finally read it. So I am excited to read it, but now I'm going into it a little bit cautiously optimistic. Like, I want to love it, but having somebody be like, ooh, I'm not sure you're gonna love it, kind of scares me a bit. This is taking place on an island where things are beginning to disappear, and the memories surrounding these things are also disappearing. And we have these memory police who are put in charge in order to make sure that people do in fact forget. And I believe things develop into a much more serious place because now it goes beyond objects. Now people are disappearing and the memories surrounding these people are disappearing as well. We follow a novelist whose editor is in danger of disappearing and being forgotten. So our main character takes them in and hides them in hopes of protecting them. But obviously this is putting our main character in danger and it might not end too well. Time for reading. I finished The Memory Police, but first, I stopped to get myself some boba. It just felt right, okay? I haven't given it a sip yet, so let's give it a little sip. It's good today. It's definitely gonna hit different today, and I'm excited about that. Speaking of hitting different, this book, I'm at a loss. Let me chew my boba balls and swallow them before I talk. I actually loved every bit of this book. I do understand why it was recommended as a book that I might not like. Because yeah, one of my biggest critiques is what Jay said in their comment when recommending this book. The world building in here, kind of non-existent. Kind of doesn't exist. Where's the explanations? Where's the reasoning? It's a very, here, suspend your disbelief and get on the ride. Get on the ride and just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But boy, did I do just that. I got on the ride and I buckled my seatbelt. Buckled it. Buckled it. Buckled it. It was an ambiguous ride, but I was down for the ride. Honestly, from beginning to end, this book really remains in this drowning sense of dread and sadness. And sometimes I am not a huge fan of those books. It really depends on like my mood and where I'm at. But I think just the way that that dread and sadness was written really worked for me. In fact, a big key factor in me loving this book was the writing style itself. I adored the passages in this book. There were so many bits of writing that popped up that literally gave me chills. I don't know why I'm holding out my arm like I have chills now, because I don't, but like, there were just some great lines that just hit so hard and so good. I love that we're following a writer in this story, and we're not necessarily only following like her story, but we also see bits of her writing. And I really liked the fact that what we saw of her writing really reflected the situation that she was in. There is a bit of a lack of character evolution, I would say, and like character development and whatnot, but I wasn't too mad about it because I feel like once the characters are planted within the story at the start, they have a pretty solid foundation at the beginning. Like, I never felt like I didn't get a sense of the characters, but I also feel like it was less about the characters and their lives and more about the characters and how they were dealing with the situation. So it just worked out for me. So I was kind of able to like overlook that lack of development in thinking about the fact that like this book is not necessarily like a character exploration story. I guess it is a character exploration story, but it's like within the bounds of the situation that they're all facing. The more that I think about this book, the more that I love it. And I know it doesn't make sense that I love the book because it has so many elements in it that normally I wouldn't like. Elements that usually would have me going womp 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 womp. This ain't it, but this was it, and I love it. It was everything. And maybe it was the writing style alone, but hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. There were so many quotes that just hit. I did not annotate this book because I thought I was gonna hate it. Like, going in, I kind of went in with that expectation like, oh, this could potentially be a book that I hated. It's recommended as a book that I might hate. So I was like, I'm not gonna bother marking it if I end up hating it and want to give it away. And maybe that's because I started annotating a book recently and ended up hating it. And now I just have a marked up book living in my house that I hate and I don't know what to do with it. That just means I have the opportunity to go back, reread this book, re-experience it, and mark it up. I also think something else that I really liked about this book is that it's such a different dystopian book from what I'm used to. I'm used to these dystopian style books that are like very YA and are very like loud acts of rebellion. And while there are rebellious moves being made throughout this book, it's much more a quiet rebellion. And there was just also something about the way that the author was able to make me feel so like hollow by the end of it. And I think I was just kind of in awe of how we found ourselves in that place and just like thinking back on all the seeds that were planted to grow us into what the ending was. I also found myself like placing myself in the shoes of this situation, and I loved the spiral that came along with it. I spiraled for a bit just thinking about it. It made me think about like the objects in my life, because in this book objects are like disappearing and the memory police are like getting rid of these objects so that there are no memories tied to them and just like erasing these objects. And it just made me think about the objects in my life and the memories that I attach to them. And I guess sort of realizing, not necessarily realizing, realizing, like, I've known this for a while, but like thinking about just the importance that we put on objects and how much of a role objects can play in our memories. Sure, at the end of the day, all these objects, all these things, all this junk that we have is meaningless, but while we're still here, they can sometimes operate as like a time machine or a memory machine, if you will. And there can be important like tunnels to the past with those things. I am realizing that I am spiraling on camera. This is what happens. I read these books and then I just like sit here like this and just all the thoughts just come in and I just process. I adored it. I get why it was recommended to me as a book that I might not like. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I know it makes no sense. Maybe my tastes are just changing, you guys. Like maybe that's it. I have changed a lot in recent years and maybe my taste in books are changing. I don't want to get into it in this video, but I think that's what's happening. I'm gonna go sip my boba and try not to spiral. And we've reached the end of the video. I'm not gonna lie. This video did not go in the way that I thought it was going to go. I guess I just thought that I was going to end up not liking any of these books. I'm just surprised that there wasn't one that like I ended up full on hating. I enjoyed all of these books. Were they each 5 stars? No, but I still really enjoyed myself. And I know that this video was to see kind of how well you guys know me. But even coming out of these books without any sort of hatred for any of them, I still feel like the ones that you guys picked, I could see reasons as to why you think I might not like it. So it was like understandable for me why these books were chosen. But that is it for this video. Thank you to everybody who submitted books to me. I might do this again in the future, but I feel like I want to do a video where I read books that you love that you feel like I would love too. So if you have a recommendation for me, drop that down below in the comments and maybe you will see it pop up on my channel soon. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo!